Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to dig into something really fascinating, the powerful theory from philosopher Kate Mann's book, Down Girl. And we're going to use our ideas as a lens to make sense of the very complex and, let's be honest, often confusing gender dynamics we see playing out in Taiwan today. Okay, so let's jump right in, because right off the bat, we're faced with this huge paradox. It's a question that, a lot of us in Taiwan have probably thought about or seen firsthand. If we're supposedly doing so well when it comes to gender equality, why does it so often feel like we're still fighting the same old battles? I mean, look at the official data. It's pretty incredible, right? According to the Gender Equality Index, Taiwan is #1 in all of Asia. And yet, that achievement just doesn't seem to line up with the reality of constant online attacks, the very real barriers women face at work, and the general social backlash that still exists. It's really confusing. So, to get our heads around this, here's our game plan. First, we're going to really define this paradox. Then, we'll unpack this core idea of misogyny as a kind of social police force. After that, we'll take this idea and apply it to real situations in Taiwan. And finally, we'll talk about, where do we go from here? So, this gets us to the heart of the puzzle that Kate Mann's work helps us solve. You think that as women gain more power and society gets more civilized, the backlash against them would just fade away. But that's not what happens. In fact, what she calls the enforcement actions against women often get even more intense, even more clever. So how exactly does this backlash, this enforcement work? Well, this is where the theory gets really interesting. Manny suggests we need a total shift in how we think about misogyny. She says we should stop getting stuck on the question, does this person secretly hate women? And instead, we should start asking a different question. How is society policing women who dare to step out of their traditional roles? Okay, so think of it this way. Sexism. That's the ideology. It's the defense lawyer, the rule book that tries to justify why things are the way they are, saying it's natural or just tradition. But misogyny, that's the cop on the beat. It's the enforcement branch that shows up to punish anyone, specifically women, who stop following those rules. So in this system, men are socially positioned as the human beings. What does that mean? It means they are the default protagonists of the story. Their needs, their ambitions, their experiences are treated as the main event, the universal standard. And on the flip side, women are often cast in this supporting role of human givers. Their value isn't seen as something they just have, but something they provide to the human beings. Things like care, emotional support, admiration. Their job is to give. And right here, this is the crucial point where everything clicks. The conflict starts when a woman, who is expected to be a giver, decides she wants to be a being. Maybe she goes for a promotion, puts her own career first, or just asks for the same respect. The system doesn't see that as ambition. It sees it as a kind of moral failure, a betrayal of her role. And that's when misogyny, the enforcer, kicks in to push her back into line. And one of the most powerful tools in that enforcement toolkit is something Manny calls himpathy. It's a brilliant term, right? It describes that almost automatic reflex our society has to pour sympathy onto a powerful man in a conflict, especially when he's accused of wrongdoing. The focus just snaps away from the woman's pain and onto his problems. This quote just nails it perfectly. We've all seen this play out. An accusation comes out, and almost instantly, the whole conversation pivots. It's no longer about her trauma, it's suddenly all about his ruined career or his bright future. That's himpathy in action. So you might be wondering, how does himpathy get away with this? Well, it works because of another powerful mechanism, testimonial injustice. This is basically a built-in social bias that automatically questions the credibility of women. Their accounts get labeled as too emotional, vindictive, or just plain unreliable, making it so much easier to dismiss them and sympathize with the man instead. Okay, so now we have this really useful toolkit of ideas. The difference between sexism and misogyny, givers versus beings, himpathy, and testimonial injustice. So let's bring it all home. Let's use this lens to look at what's actually happening on the ground here in Taiwan. Just look at this data on unpaid labor. Wow. This is the human giver role in black and white. In Taiwan, women do almost double the amount of unpaid work every single day, caring for kids, parents, running the household. This isn't just a collection of individual choices. It's a huge, deeply ingrained social expectation. And that expectation follows women right into the office. The pay gap means women are essentially working for free for almost 2 months of the year. The number of women in management has just stopped growing, hitting a clear glass ceiling. And this last one is just wild. 77% of women are asked about their marriage plans in job interviews. That is textbook preventative policing to make sure their giver role won't get in the way. And, of course, this policing happens online, where it can get incredibly vicious. On forums like PTT, the term mother pig is basically a weapon used to attack and shame women who fail to perform their giver duties perfectly. If she's seen as wanting money, or being in control of her own sexuality, or, and this is a big one, demanding rights without performing traditional duties, she gets targeted. It's a classic move to shame women back into compliance. This brings us to Taiwan's #MeToo movement. This was basically a massive society-wide rebellion against exactly this process of testimonial injustice. For so long, the pattern was predictable. A woman speaks out, and immediately she faces this wave of dismissal. She's hysterical, she's doing it for attention, she's lying for money. Her credibility is systematically torn apart.
But here's the thing, the collective outcry from #MeToo was so loud it couldn't be ignored, and it led to real structural change. The reforms to the law weren't just about punishing a few bad actors. They were a crucial acknowledgement that this isn't about individual behavior, it's about systemic abuses of power.
So, armed with this deeper understanding of the problem, the big question becomes, what's the solution? How do we start to move towards a society that doesn't run on this old, broken logic? Well, there's no single magic bullet. The solutions have to be as systematic as the problem itself. That means changing our institutions with things like real paternity leave, changing our justice system to actually believe victims, creating real consequences for online harassment, and maybe the hardest part, changing our culture by learning to see our own built-in biases, like empathy. And that really brings us to the final and maybe most important takeaway, because dismantling this logic has to start somewhere, and it can start with a very simple but very powerful personal act. The next time a story like this breaks, before rushing to judgment, we can just pause and ask ourselves this one question. By becoming aware of where our sympathy automatically goes, we can start to break the cycle, one thought at a time.